So we talked about how difficult it is for young women especially to find someone that is ready for a serious relationship. If you're in your early 20s, it's pretty difficult. Guys need until they're about 24 before they're mature enough to learn how to limit their choices and how to limit their impulses to make a good choice. I was talking to a few people outside, and I had remembered something that I had written in the book but didn't really share with you. But what we discovered in our research is that, especially with guys, guys seem to be bothered by their singleness when they, and even some married friends of mine, even folks with families, but seem to be bothered when they have birthdays ending in 0 or 5. Try and observe it among your friends, but you'll notice that when a guy is approaching 30, if he's still single, he gets pretty nervous. So I have some friends that started dating around, their guys around 26, and remember we're talking about mixed couples. So let's be clear. A mixed couple is a couple where one person is an X and the other person is a Y, predominantly Y. So we're talking about YY and XX, just pure X. Y types tend to have more of a problem with commitment. It's not an insurmountable problem, but it's a bigger problem than with X types. Y types tend to date with their heads. X types tend to date with their hearts. A Y type will date when the time is right, usually when they feel that they're running out of time. An X type will date when the person is right. And it's a huge difference. I think we all have blueprints. You know, this is my blueprint of who I would like to spend the rest of my life with. But what I've noticed is for single people, those that come to me with their blueprints, when they were Y types, they stuck religiously to those blueprints. It's important for you to ask your guy, so what kind of a woman were you hoping to marry? There have been a few Y types that told the truth. Even when the type they were describing was nothing close to the person that they were with. An X-type person would have a blueprint as well, but you would meet a guy, fall in love, and throw it out. I don't think that X-type should always do that, because what that forces you to do is to lower your standards, and you find yourself with someone and realizing this person isn't the person that I really wanted to be with, but because you follow your heart and not your head, that's how it turns out. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, Y-type men and women tend to wait too late to get married. When you hear about people that got married later on in life, they're usually Ys. But I hear the laughter and I'm trying to figure out if it's the Ys laughing or if it's the X's laughing, because you should know that X types, I know a few X types that are 35, 40, 45, and they're not married either. But for a different reason. See, that's the thing. This is the reason why this whole relationship thing is so complex, which is why it's so difficult for us to understand, because you could see the same thing happening, and unless you know the reason behind it, you would think that you understood it. I have the caption here titled Waiting Too Late, because X types, they don't wait too late, but they wait too long. It's different. An X type, and I'll say female, but you know the same thing could happen for males. An X type will date someone for 5 years just because he said, hey, I need to be finished with, you name it. Medical school, dental school, my mom is real sick, my dad is real sick, I want to be there for him. A litany, a long list of reasons why they need to wait. And the X type, because your currency, remember your currency is words, you buy it. You believe it. You go with it, and you stick in there for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, he says, I'm just not feeling it anymore. You just wasted 5 years of your life. Now, a Y type, generally, would scarcely stay in a relationship for 1 year if they didn't think you were right for them, or if they didn't think that you were useful. Maybe I should get into this a little more. We could come back. Okay, little bit of advice for single people, and then I'm going to go straight to the differences between X's and Y's. There's one researcher out there that says that there's a window, and she's very adamant about it. She says there's a window for young people to get married, and that window is somewhere between 20 and 30, and she says if you miss that window, not that it's impossible to get married, but it's difficult. And she cites the reasons why. So those of you that are interested in that book, I can get you the name of it after. You can meet me outside, and I'll get you the name of that book. But she has a lot of explanations and a lot of reasons. And I'm just giving you a few of these. The rest will be in the book. We're going to run out of time again, so I'm going to try not to go into too much of it. X's, if you're dating, you need to save a little bit of the mystery. We talk too much. If you've ever dated a Y, I know some Ys that dated some X's and didn't remember to tell them that they had 3 brothers. So they thought, the girlfriend thought that he was an only child. This is how undisclosing a Y-type person can be. They're very private. Privacy is everything to them. When you find out that they had some cousins that lived on the next street corner, you're all hurt as an ex. Why didn't you tell me? You mean Joe that I've been talking to for 6 months is your cousin? The Y is like, why was that important to you? This is what Ys are. You need, if you're going to date a Y, you need to be mysterious too. You need to save some of that mystery. Don't talk that much. Don't share so much. Even if you're already in a relationship, you could turn around that relationship by stopping, by putting that zipper across your lip and becoming mysterious. For some strange reason, Ys are attracted to mystery. Don't share too much. So what if he doesn't know that you're an orphan? That your parents, you don't have parents, or you came from another country, or you speak 5 languages. He could find that out 5 years later, like he would be telling you 5 years later some very important things. But this is what Ys are like, and you have to become like that. Remember what we talked about, the blueprint. Do not, X-type women, abandon your blueprint. You keep that standard high. Whatever your standard is in a guy, do not abandon that standard just because he says, well, I think I like you. Because Ys don't do that. You are going to have to date like a Y if you're an X. And if you're a Y, you're going to have to date like an X. People tend to date in the extremes. So if you're an X, you date like an extreme X. If you're a Y, you date like an extreme Y, and it's not helpful. Y types play too long. Especially the guys, they try to stay out there too long, in single land. Just dating around because they feel that they have all the time in the world. They're always in control of the relationship anyway. So I'll just get married when I want to be. Ys need to be careful with stringing people along. In the book, I described one chapter which was, I don't want to say it was a little harshly described, but I described how Ys date as instrumental. If you think of an instrument, you play the instrument, right? The instrument doesn't play you. You can put it down when you're tired. You can pick it back up. You can smash it. But it's your instrument. When you're dating a Y, and I know I am probably preaching to the choir here, and maybe this doesn't apply to any of you, because you all are most of you are Christians, and I'm sure that Christian men are guided by Christian principles. But I'm sharing this with you anyway because you might come across one that's not. And if he's not, then you need to be careful about being strung along. Then you need to be careful about being used instrumentally, so that you could be a companion for someone who's waiting for the companion that he thinks he really needs. Does that make sense? So be less superficial and be less materialistic if you're a Y. Unfortunately, there are a lot of Y-type men and women that have left really good companions that God possibly intended them to have simply because they didn't have enough money, or didn't have a good enough job, or didn't have the right title. And Ys are in danger of doing that. So if you're a Y, I'm cautioning you to go to God, find out if the person that you're interested in is the person for you, and do not make decisions just based on superficial variables. Compromise a little more. Y types, you tend not to like to compromise a lot. Also, you don't always have all the answers. Sometimes your partner is right. Try to compromise. This phrase that I keep hearing from Y types, it's my way or the highway. I know you think nobody would say that to somebody else, but I've heard it. I've actually heard men say to their girlfriends and their wives, it's my way or the highway. I've actually heard them say that, and I cringed. Because I thought, ooh, what do I do with that? I mean, this is a dynamic that is like way far down the road here. Again, Y types, only date Y types who... Okay, Y types will only date Y types who don't appear emotionally needy. So ladies, if you're an X and you insist on dating a Y, you're going to have to not appear to be needy. You're going to have to be the independent X woman, which, sometimes is hard to pull off. So when he doesn't call you, you're not going to call him. When you send him the text that is a thesis long, and he sends you back a text that is 2 words, you're not going to chew him out because you're independent. You don't need conversation. You don't need him. You don't need that conversation. So, okay, if you don't want to talk, when you're ready to talk, you can talk to me. And then maybe when he's ready to talk, you shouldn't be ready to talk to him. You think that is going to push him away, but it will not. To the Y-type man, you have just become challenging, and he'll be drawn to you. Unfortunately, it's a game that you have to play, and it's unfortunate. I want to revisit this 22% because I put it out there this morning, and a few of you misunderstood. I wasn't saying that if you had these problems, you are going to be in the 22%. The 22% is a statistic. It just simply says somebody went out there, sociologists, and did some research and found that 22% of us don't marry. What you didn't realize is, out of that 22%, a lot of them didn't want to be married in the first place. So I'll self-disclose. Since I'm by now you probably guess I'm an X. I'll self-disclose a little. My brother is a Y, a YY. He loves me dearly, and I'm sure he knows that I feel the same way. My father was also a YY. There's a very strong genetic component to this. My mother's an XX. I took from her. My father would speak to me like my brother. He would initiate a call probably about 4 times or 5 times a year. Same thing for my brother. If we spoke more frequently than that, it's because I called. Because of this theory and because I've known about this for more than 5 years, I have learned not to take this personally. And I have also learned not to value my mother above my father because my father could love me as much, even if his personality does not allow him to reach out as much. So, the last conversation I had with my brother, I asked him about marriage and he laughed. Marriage? I'm good. I don't know if I'll ever get married. Not surprising, he's a YY, and Ys tend to not really feel that need as strongly. So in the 22% are several people who won't get married because they don't want to. That's the X and Y that I have on the top. And then there are a lot of X's who won't get married because they stayed with Ys too long. I want you to do the math. If you gave every man that you dated 6 years of your life to make up his mind, what's going to happen by the time you get to boyfriend number 5? Yes, well, you could figure out what's going to happen. But this is what X's do. We will give them as much time as they say they need. And then we end up in the 22%. We talked about the damaged. I'm not going to go over that. Abnormal psych, we talked about that. Independent, the independence is tied into the Y-typeness. My brother is very, very independent. He does everything for himself. And it's a good thing for a man to be able to cook for himself and clean his house and do everything, but you could get to the place where you absolutely need no one. And I think that's where he is. And that's fine, if that's what he wants. I tell him about the statistic all the time about people living almost 10 years less when they are single, but he says he doesn't really care about that. If he's that old and that sick to get to that point in his life, he's thinking, well, I wouldn't care then. Maybe by then I'll be ready to die. I'm not thinking about that right now, he says. But he's only saying that because he's a Y. So, you remember these types? Ex-communicator, we've done this is, I think, the 3rd time. What I'd like is a show of hands of those of you who have not gotten a copy of the test and you haven't taken the test and you don't know what your personality is. Can I have a show of hands? Okay. All right, so I will keep talking so that we don't run out of time, but I have a few people that are going to assist me by passing these tests out, and I apologize ahead of time, but those of you who get it, if you want to take the test while I'm talking, I will not be offended, and I hope you're okay with me continuing, but I want to get through the whole thing. So while they're doing that, let's continue. Okay, you've heard about men are from Mars and women are from Venus, haven't you? That was 20 years ago. I cannot begin to tell you how much has changed since then. The reason why this book sold, I cannot remember how many copies, a crazy number of copies, and it's been around for a while. Now, those of you that read the book, you would probably recall that you probably only got to chapter 5, and I hope when you read my book, you don't call me and tell me, hey, Dr. Jacob, I only got to chapter 5 of your book as well. But I didn't get past chapter 5 in Men Are From Mars. Why? Because I felt like I got it. I got it. So what I did is, when I wrote my book, I decided I will put the chemical affair, I will make it chapter 9 or 10 to force people to go all the way to the end of the book and get past chapter 5. But in most books, they will tell you in the first 5 chapters what the book is about. So, Men Are From Mars is simple. You know what it says? It says that we're different. It says that men are different and women are different, and if you know that you're dating an alien, then you should lower your expectations. Well, a lot has changed since then. Every single book that has been written from Men Are From Mars, you would notice that they are written either for the benefit of the women or the benefit of the men. You can look at any of the titles. I had one title that I put in the book there, and I don't know if I remember it exactly the way it was. Something to the effect of Why men don't talk and why women can't read maps. Really? Seriously? You guys can't read maps? I didn't know that. I really had no idea because I suck at reading maps. And I'm a guy. I have GPS and I still get lost. So for years now, we've been putting you guys in little capsules. Men here, women here, and it's almost like a battle. It's almost like a war. One title was entitled, How to Find a Man by Friday. Really? Oh, so only women are looking to find a man as quickly as they can? Another title said, How to Become the Woman of His Dreams. Really? So you guys are the only ones that need to change to make a relationship work. We don't need any change at all. We're just perfect. We're good, and we're the lucky ones, and you guys are lucky to have us. Those are some ridiculous titles that we've put up with for too long. So, when I wrote this book, fortunately for me, I discovered that not every woman was an X-type woman, and not every man was a Y-type man. In fact, we know the numbers. As I told some of you, it's 75%, and it's growing, by the way. 75% of men are still Y-type, and 25% of men are X-types. Women, I thought it would have been the flip-flop, but so far, I've gotten 38% of women that I've tested. There's a Y in their personality somewhere, and that's growing. So here's what happened. Sometime, well, I think it started even before then, maybe with the women's liberation movement, we started having women changing how they thought about things and how they thought about life and how their personalities seemed to express itself. But that wasn't all. We also had intact families where fathers and mothers would say to the boys, you know what? It's okay to cry. Because when I grew up, it wasn't okay to cry. It wasn't okay for a boy to cry when I grew up. It's like, why are you crying? You're a boy. Well, I just fell off my bike and skidded on my forehead for half a mile, Dad. That's why. And this is the truth. This actually happened. And he thought I should get up with a skin forehead and smile. It's not like that anymore. Now we tell our boys, it's okay. You could cry if you need to cry. So we are pushing our girls into male-dominated professions. In fact, we're pushing our women in general out into the workforce to work in male-dominated professions, where to compete and get to the top, they have to assume a lot of characteristics and traits that men would typically have. And then we tell the boys, it's okay to be Mr. Mom if you want. You don't have to go out. You could be the stay-at-home person. I actually have two friends right now, which is an interesting situation, but the guy is a fireman, and firemen, they are the alpha males usually, right? So they had a baby, and before they had the child, I kind of figured that when I tested him, I would be able to tell that the guy was more of an X than his wife, simply because he was the one that was pushing for a child, and she was like, could wait on that, not really feeling it. They had a child. I tested them. His emotional score was 100. The test that you have in front of you right now, it goes up to 40, but the expanded version goes to 100. Tested him. He had a score of 100 on the emotional scale. Hers was 80. So I explained to her that I said, when you have this child, he's going to be more maternal than you are. She's like, I doubt that. He's a fireman. Well, the last time I went to their house, he was wearing one of those vests that men can wear to nurse the baby. Mm-hmm. I never knew they existed. I was freaked out. There he was with this man vest feeding this child. And I'm like, whoa, a fireman. I should take a picture of this, put it on YouTube. Things have completely, totally changed. Totally changed. So now there is neither male nor female, and I'm not talking about in a sense of gender. This is not about alternative lifestyle. This is about personality. There is a huge difference in the number of words. I have hinted to this before, but we know that women, and I'm saying women again, why? Because I'm conditioned myself. We know for a fact that what they called women before, but now I would refer to as X-types need about 20,000 words to feel fulfilled. 20,000 words. I know I heard some of you say, wow, but I do get through 20,000 words pretty quickly. It's not much. It's like a little bit. By lunchtime, I could be done with my 20,000. 20,000 words, and men need only 7,000. And that, for men, means what? Y-types. Not really men, Y-types. So if you're an X-type, going to work at a job where you're not allowed to communicate a lot because you chose to be a programmer, which, by the way, is rare. The majority of programmers are Y-types. And that's another story we're going to have to talk about some other time. But Palo Alto has the highest number of people with Asperger's and autism. Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, where all the programmers are, where Facebook is, where Yahoo is, where Google is, all the headquartered internet companies. And they have found that they have a pretty high incidence of Asperger's among their children, which means that they don't like to talk very much and don't like to be touched very much. Coincidence? I'm about to find out. How X-types communicate with each other. X-types communicate with each other in a very chaotic, confused kind of way, where if you have a group of, what used to be, if you had a group of women talking and it sounded like they were chattering, nobody's taking their turn, everybody's talking at the same time, but they're still following the conversation. You know exactly what everybody is saying, and everybody's answering, and somebody jumps in, and then somebody jumps out. If you had a Y-type person sitting with you, they would become irritated. It's the reason why the men get up sometimes when the women are having their little talks and walk out of the room exasperated, because they're like, this is too much. What do you got? Too much. If you are one-on-one with your guy and you try to do that, like he says something to you and you try to cut him off because you just have to make this point right now, he's upset. Why is he upset? He cannot handle your style of communication, because as an X, you communicate in cascades like this, and you can start a conversation, stop it, come back around 5 minutes later and continue it right where you left off. And he cannot follow it and gets irritated by it. X-types communicate with a lot of passion and emotion, and you must have heard this. I mean, if you see X-types talking, you could tell when two X-type friends meet, they're like exploding. It sounds like a big explosion, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of gesticulations and hand movements and all of that. Obviously, Ys do not. Emotionality or emoting, and sometimes what a Y would consider to be overreacting, is how X-types communicate. So you do have to watch how you communicate with Ys. Ys communicate in sound bites. It's the reason why when you send a text to your husband, again, and your text is this big and he sends this. He sends the letter K instead of OK. What's that? You economizing on the O's? He's saving money. The last function I attended was the LA Festival, and there was this guy that came to me, and he kept me standing there for like an hour, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So he's talking away, and I could have accidentally thought that he was an ex until he described his relationship with his significant other, and I thought, no, he's not. But he was explaining to me that his partner he didn't understand why she needed to have an unlimited plan. And I'm like, I better not tell him I have an unlimited plan. He had the shortest plan he could possibly have, and he said, I was saving so much money, and she's just wasting our money with this stupid unlimited plan. Does she have to talk to all of these people every day? This is the difference between how Ys and how X's communicate. This is the difference in how much they need to communicate. He said his wife, he put on the unlimited plan because the plan she had before, which by the way was the maximum, she kept going over her words. And so when she would go over the number of words or when she'd go over her data plan, he obviously had to pay an extra, who knows what, $50, $100. So he couldn't understand why that needed to be at all. He said you know what? I counted. I don't think I send more than 50 texts a month. And I thought, okay, 50 texts. And he said, no, I mean 50 words of text. Seriously, dude? And really? This is how you live? So he tells me that he cuts his phone off. And his friends know. When my phone is off, it's not that I didn't pay my bill. I just don't want to talk to you. I want to be alone. I want some alone time. This is a why. So, I mean, ladies, if you're an X and you're getting with a Y, you have to understand he's not being mean. This is what XY theory is all about, to let you know that people are different by personality and it's not malicious. If you didn't know that, then you'd be really highly irritated because you think that your partner is being totally discourteous. But what if your excessive amount of words and talking irritates him, makes him feel uncomfortable? I mean, what if there's something a little deeper than what he's telling you? So X's, by the way, you communicate explicitly and in 3D. I don't know if you've ever spoken to a Y and when they're done with their half of a sentence, you don't know what they're trying to say. X's, you will always know what we're trying to say because we will take our 15 minutes to explain it to you. You will know exactly what we mean. And it's in 3D. I couldn't just simply tell you that there was a bomb scare at my school. I have to tell you who I thought did it. And whether or not there really was a bomb scare and how many fire trucks came up and what this teacher said and what the principal did. I have to tell you. 3D. And your poor white partner is like, really, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Don't need to hear all about it. Was there a bomb? And as soon as you say, no, there was not a bomb, that's the end of the conversation. There's no need to talk about it any further. Ys rely on inferences and summarization. They want everything you say to them to be summarized. Please get to the point. And you're thinking, seriously? I can't get to the point with a sentence. I cannot get to the point with a sentence. But you can. You actually can. You could summarize what you have to say. I have listened to myself sometimes, and I can tell you, playing it back, I'm thinking, really? I didn't need to say all of that. I could have saved some of that. Okay, your content matters to Ys. It may not matter to you, but what you talk about is very important to the Y. Ys are functional, which is the reason why, as I was talking to someone before, a Y could tell you, I love you, as much as you need to hear it before the altar, and not one single time after. Why? And then you're thinking, but you said it to me 100 times before we got married. How could I know you could say it because you said it before? No, he said it before because it was functional, and it served the purpose to get you in, down the aisle, and that's done now. So now he's thinking, I don't want to say it anymore. I don't have to. Function. So content matters. Function is the order of the day. When you call your Y partner at work, I hope you're not disturbing him. Because he'll feel easily disturbed. It must serve some function. What is the reason why? I've heard exes call Ys and say, well, I just wanted to hear your voice. Ladies, if you are exes in the relationship, don't do that. I mean, I understand, but he doesn't. Thank you. He doesn't, so don't do it. Call one of your girlfriends, call your mom, call your sister. Yeah, exes need at least twice as many words per day to bond. And here's the important thing. You're not just talking, you're bonding. As a matter of fact, the research shows that if you were gossiping, and we all know, it's good Christians, that gossip is no good, but they've done studies and found that even with gossiping, oxytocin was flowing. And it's not like guys don't understand oxytocin. You watch basketball games where those guys slap each other on the butts. I never got that, not for some time. I'm like, this is kind of weird. But have you noticed that in sports? Somebody does throws in a basket, wham, they get slapped. It's just a way of celebrating. What the scientists have found is that every time they do that, that touch, that slap on the back, oxytocin flowed and actually bonded the team together. So it's not that guys are immune to oxytocin. So even with gossiping, just to give you an idea of how much you need the communication, small talk. Your Y-type partner hates small talk. Anything that has anything to do with speculation. You want to talk about the house that you want to buy in 2 years. And he's like, really, seriously? Are we going to talk about this now? We don't have money for the house. Why are you even looking at the HGTV? I mean, why are you on that channel? We don't have money for this. No speculating. No planning. You want to plan things. For whys, it's pointless speculation. Pointless speculation. Let's just stick to the facts. The facts are we don't have the money for the house. So let's not talk about it until we do. So, again, check and see. If you're dating, check and see who is on the unlimited talk and text plan. If you're an ex, find a guy that has an unlimited text plan. Talk or text. Easy. This isn't rocket science. It's easy to find the guy that you need. Exes come across as warm, caring, sympathetic. However, vulnerable. Pretty obvious. If you wear your heart on your sleeve, you will be more vulnerable, wouldn't you? Whys, however, will see you as dependent and needy. And they won't necessarily tell you that. This is the reason why I keep pushing the test. This is the reason why, in spite of my publishers or against my publishers' better advice, I had that test put on my website for free. And they kept thinking, no, it's going to be in the book. You need to put so I put a better version in the book to satisfy them and a more abbreviated version on the website. But I felt it was important for people to be able to go on there freely and figure out whether they're exes or Ys, because if you're an ex dating a Y, you will be seen as needy no matter what you try. Now, you could make some adjustments, but then you need to know that you need to make those adjustments. Exes feel accountability is important. No lates without phone calls. We talked about that earlier. You want your partner to call if they know they're going to be late. And this is an argument that couples have for years. The husband is showing up late. He knows he has a 12-hour job. And she knows it too. But dinner's on the table at 5, and they have an argument at 8. Why? She's having an argument with him because she thinks that he can do differently. But Ys have an extreme need to prove themselves on their jobs. Their jobs are paramount. Very, very, very important that they have an excellent, excellent reputation on the job. My own brother has arguments with my mom when she tries to get him to come to see her. No, Mom, I can't leave the job. So one day she got cruel and she said, okay, when was your last promotion? Well, he hadn't been promoted in about 20 years. And she said, seriously, this is the job that's keeping you from your mother? But that did not matter to him. Jobs and Y-types, they go hand in hand. Okay, Ys, no calls mean the building has not burned down. If you're waiting to hear from your Y-type and he's not calling, or he's on the job and you think he's working a little late, it doesn't mean anything other than, hey, there's no emergency, there's no crisis. In times of stress and pressure, exes offer and seek emotional support, and this is very, very important. If your guy is a Y, when something is wrong in the relationship, when something is wrong at work, he wants to be left alone. solitude. This is how he recharges. This is how he rebuilds his batteries. This is how he thinks through the problem. You don't want to handle it like that. You would prefer to talk about it together, work on the problem together, verbally, using the very medium that he despises, words. Leave him alone. Let him come up with his own solutions. Wise, as I said in stress, they want time, they want solitude, and they want distance. There's a reason why guys get together with other guys and go hunting for an entire weekend. I don't get it, but there's a reason. And very often that reason is to get away from the chatter and the noise and the overwhelm at home, the kids running around, and it's like they can't handle, it's like their circuits become overloaded and they need the solitude of a good hunt or good fishing where you don't hear one single thing out of the fish for 5 hours, and then you catch this size fish. And that recharges them. Intimacy is more bonding for X's than for Y's. On this point, we talked about oxytocin this morning, and I neglected to mention something. When the scientists were doing the experiments with the oxytocin, they didn't have a lot of space, a lot of room in the lab. So they actually had some of the prairie voles crowded together in their little cages over on a counter, waiting for them to have their blood drawn so that they could test for the oxytocin. And guess what happened? What actually happened was, when they tried to pull the cages apart, the males who were next to females made a huge uproar because the little time that they had spent in the cages next to each other was enough to bond them for life. The point was, the scientists found out that they didn't need to have sexual intercourse to bond for life. And they tried the same experiment with every level of mammal, all the way up. So what does that tell us as human beings, since we too have oxytocin? Young ladies, the next time a guy says to you, you know, we need to take this to the next level so I can be sure. It's not true. There's one bonding agent, and that's oxytocin. And yes, it flows freely during sex, but it also flows with words, and it flows with closeness, and it flows with spending time with each other. And if he's lying, or even if he doesn't know he's lying, remember what we said this morning. Testosterone that flows in men 10 times more than it does in women will destroy any remnant of oxytocin that he has and any chance that you have of having him bond with you for life. Is that clear? Use of communication to do the heavy lifting in the relationship is the practice of X's. X's are the worrywarts in the relationship. It's one of the reasons why X's gravitate towards Y's, because Y's make us feel secure. They don't worry as much as we do. They don't blow up at the slightest provocation. And you could always go to them and they'll be like, you know, babe, just calm down. Everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. However, the coolness of the Y's later on will be interpreted as coldness. Yeah, you could just take coolness so far. X's shouldn't make promises they can't or won't keep. Why? Because for Y's, actions speak louder than words. Way louder. That doesn't work for us X's. We'll take the words. We'll take the promises. We'll hold on to those. But Y's, they'll hold on to your words too, and they'll treat them like acts of Congress. That's why you can't make promises. The slightest thing that you say to a Y, he'll bring it up. He'll say, hey, didn't you say that you were going to do this? And dare you not make a mistake, a single mistake. because that too will be treated like treason. Reciprocation is viewed differently between X's and Y's. X's will do most of the adapting in the relationship. You can easily tell if you're the X in the relationship, no matter what your score is when you take that test. If you are the one making most of the changes to make the relationship work, you're the X. It's that simple. Now, this is not all gloom and doom, and I've had a few people come up to me and say, this sounds really gloomy. It's not all gloom and doom, and I'll tell you why. There are hundreds, if not thousands of women out there, and I know them because I've spoken to many of them, who can make whatever adaptations, whatever adjustments they need to make the relationship work. And they can be happy about it. In the book, I call those couples conditioned couples. And the reason why they're conditioned is, when you take the long version of the test, I ask the question, how long have you been together? And the reason why I ask that is because if you've been together long enough, somebody has made so many adjustments that you're no longer recognizable as having an XY relationship. So it's not gloom and doom. Change is possible. And when you think about it, the very gospel that we all claim, that we believe in, and that we strive to live our lives according to, what is it about? Think about it. You know someone else that said that he won't change, don't you? Well, let me tell you the words, and then you'll remember who we're talking about. I am the Lord thy God, I change not. Remember that? That means when you signed your name on that dotted line and you became a Christian, you agreed to change. Because God doesn't. So if by some miracle you could change to become a better person for him, how is it that you can't change to become a better person for your partner? I don't get it. It's the same process. So it's not impossible. Change is possible. But you two are going to have to be committed. Among men, and this one you can answer, and then we'll spend the last few minutes hearing about your test results. Among men, who makes the better parent? X's or Y's? X's? You think? Well, it depends on what you're looking at, what you're looking for. If you're looking for someone that's going to be nurturing, maybe X's will. And I've seen a lot of men that were more nurturing than the mothers, because the mothers were wise. If you're looking for someone that could keep the family grounded in a time of crisis, economic or otherwise, maybe you're looking at the Y's. X's, by the way, are more prone to things like depression. You guys have listened to a number of speakers, including Dr. Nedley, and they have some really, really, really great programs that can help. But you need to know that the majority of people that I tested that had problems with depression and anxiety were X types. And why is that? Because X's worry more. Y's are like, all right, so there was a tornado in Oklahoma. We never had one. That's how they behave. We talked about the levels of need. Y's and X's, these are a few of the techniques that you need to use to help with your relationship. Manage your expectations. It was the primary reason why I wrote this book. If you know that the man sitting next to you is doing what he's doing because this is who he is, it makes a difference. If you thought he was doing it because he's just a mean goat, then that makes a difference too, because then you're going to treat him differently. Now, it doesn't mean that he has to stay the way he is. I hope no one is hearing me say that you won't change and you don't have to make changes to be a better person. Remember, you have to do two things. You have to find somebody that you're most suitable with, and you have to find somebody that is willing to change. But as long as you understand where he's coming from, how far away he's coming from where you are, then maybe you could be a little more understanding of the process. Wise, you need to have more empathy. Quit treating your ex-spouse or ex-partner as someone that is chronically needy. There's a difference between being needy and having needs. The fact that you don't need communication and your partner doesn't make your partner needy. The fact that you don't need to hold hands You don't want to spoon in bed at night because you're too hot. You don't want somebody to say, I love you all the time, but she does or he does, doesn't make that person needy. So be a little more empathetic. Wives need to increase their social conversation. Yes, you need to make a little small talk. Why? Because I've heard you doing it with the other guys in the office. What did you think that talk was about, who won the basketball game and what Tiger Woods is doing on the course and all of that stuff? What do you think that was? And what about that race car that you bought, that sports car that you bought? That's small talk. If you could do this with your male friends, you probably could do a little small talk with your wife. Why not? You have the capacity to do it. And function. Everything doesn't have to be functional. Sometimes your wife could just want to talk to you about the neighbor next door. Doesn't have to have a function. Doesn't have to have a purpose. Everything doesn't have a purpose. Maybe the function is that she's your wife and she wants to hear your voice for once in a millennium. Exes. You're going to have to meet your wives halfway. You're going to have to learn to communicate in chunks. Save some of that for the next conversation. He doesn't have to hear everything tonight. Little chunks. And then maybe that'll make you think a little more carefully about what's most poignant to put out. Maybe that'll make you think a little more carefully about, okay, I have 2 minutes with him. I can't tell him about these 5 things. I'll choose the most important. But chunk it. Summarize it. When you begin to summarize what you say to your wife partner, you will realize how much extra fluffy nonsense you often add to conversations. And I know it's true because I do it too. You could leave off about 75% of what you say to your wife partner. And then, of course, there's the vacuum principle. I've tried it. You're taking a long trip. Your wife partner is quite content to drive from here to Vegas without saying a single word. You, the chatterbox, so you fill the space. Maybe you should try to vacuum out those words. Take the words out of the car, out of the no conversation. Just give him some dead silence. If he's been used to you chattering all the time, it'll be a little uncomfortable, believe it or not. And he's probably going to turn to you and ask you, are you okay? Is everything all right? Are we okay? Did I do something wrong? What's going on? Use the vacuum principle a little. Okay, the book has 4 tests. Primarily, you have one in front of you, but the book has 4 tests primarily because one of those tests, or 2 of those tests are for, of course, one for you, one for your partner if he's willing or she's willing. But then there's a test called the reluctant partner test, and it's only in the book. And the reluctant partner test is because what I've found in most couples, the person that is really enjoying the relationship, by the way, usually wouldn't want to take the test. It's like, really? I thought we were good. You're good. I'm doing all the cooking. I'm doing all the cleaning. I'm doing all the adjusting. You need to take this test. So they won't take the test, and so I've created a test called the reluctant partner test that you can take for them. After all, you spent a lot of years of your life with them. You probably know them pretty well. If you spend more than 3 months with them, you know them well enough. So you take that reluctant partner test, and it is 95% accurate. You can still find out what their personality type is. And you can still see where you need to tweak the relationship to make things work. And by the way, you could tweak this all by yourself. You actually don't need your partner's help. It'll be nice, because this is what you have. It's a continuum. I like 7,000 words. You like 21,000 words. If I decrease my words, what's happening? I'm getting closer to yours, am I not? Yeah. It'll be nice if he starts increases as you start to decrease yours. That's ideal. That's what we want. But if he refuses to, you could start making some adjustments. Okay, the other test is an App Your Ex test, because I found that a lot of people brought a lot of baggage to their relationship and didn't have any closure. It's difficult to enjoy your current relationship if you don't have closure from the previous one. So you don't have to call your ex-boyfriend because you know he'll probably curse at you. But you just take the test, your ex test for him, and you find out, oh my gosh, you mean those 5 years that I spent with him didn't go anywhere because he was a Y and I was an X? And you get your closure. So, in the last minute that we have, does anybody feel brave enough to put your hand up and tell us what your personality is? Anybody got finished? Anyone at all? We have 1 minute. Don't be shy.
X-moderate and X-moderate.
Very good. X-moderate and X-moderate is nice little balance, not too emotional, not too silent. Anybody else? No one else. Okay, tomorrow I will be talking about silent partners.
Amen.
Yeah. It's a huge problem in our church, and I will tell you why tomorrow. I will tell you why perhaps of most of the churches out there. We have churches with unhappy couples who not won't, but cannot admit that there's a problem. Absolutely cannot, almost as if it were forbidden. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow, and you'll tell me if I'm right. Thank you for listening.